other errors manifested by the Protestant Church all over the world, including all denominations outside of growing in grace. The baptism with the Holy Spirit. Jesus said, He will give you another comforter, the Spirit of truth. He will teach you all things. Speaking of that baptism in the Holy Spirit, He called it a comforter that He came to teach. It was a teaching spirit. And that is not tongues. Now look at what it says, what grace teaches and what this ministry teaches. Ephesians 1-13. Look at what it says. What is the true baptism in the Holy Spirit? In Him, you also. Number one, this is how you receive the promise of the Holy Spirit. It says, in Him you also trusted after you heard the word of truth. What is the word of truth? The gospel of your salvation. In whom also, having believed, you were sealed with the Holy Spirit of what? In some churches they ask, have you received the promise? Then you say, if you already speak in tongues, they tell you, well, you are. How am I? You are saved, but you don't have the promise. In other words, I am saved, but I don't have the promise, I don't have the Holy Spirit. No, until you don't have the promise of the Holy Spirit, you're halfway there. And that's worrisome. You go into one of those new churches that are around and are very popular on television. This is baptism of fire. And fire is rapakatapaka, rapakatapaka. And you have to speak in something that you do not know. Because if you don't know what you are talking about, you don't have the promise of the Spirit. Ephesians 1:13 says, after you what? Heard what? The gospel of your salvation, you were sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise. No, but you have to speak in tongues. No. See what first letter to the Corinthians chapter 12 says about tongues. See what it says. First letter to the Corinthians chapter 12 verse 30. Verse 30. Do all have gifts of healings? What do you answer? No, they don't all have gifts of healing. Do all speak with tongues? Now is the promise of the Spirit for everyone. Do all speak with tongues? So it cannot be an evidence of it to speak in tongues. Do you understand? Yes? Do all interpret? No. Now, the Spirit, everyone, we have all received it because in that same chapter, it says that we all have drank of the same Spirit, that is the Spirit. The only thing is that it is a ministry with different gifts. I speak languages, I joke about it, but in the system I speak languages. Almost always in that system is that one speaks tongues, because that is part of it. That is something unknown. And now he says, when the perfect comes, and what is the perfect? When you leave the rudiments, Paul says, he says, when that which is perfect comes, then these things would cease. And then Paul says that when you leave the rudiments of the doctrine of Christ, you enter where? To perfection. And once you enter, since when do I not speak in tongues? I haven't for a long time. And before I didn't speak in tongues every day. If it wasn't the Spirit, Jose Luis spoke them, but I had to hear myself saying. I had to say something to feel like I was in on it. Because the faith was not well established.